Alright, we're back in the shop today and we're going to be working on this Subaru STI. Alright, so we're going to be pulling the engine out. He had a Cobb access port tune on this thing. Just downloaded right from the Cobb access port, stock turbo, whatever. And it was boosting at about 26, 28 PSI, which, you know, stock turbos are not meant for that. So turbo ended up blowing up and ruining his engine. There's a bunch of sparkles in his engine oil, a bunch of metal in there. And so yeah, we gotta get a new engine. And we already got the intercooler and the downpipe off. That's basically from when I was diagnosing it, trying to figure out what was wrong. So that stuff's already out. But we've got a new turbo here. It's just a rebuilt stock turbo. I think it has a billet compressor wheel, and it's got a timing belt kit, water pump. It's got a new clutch for it, and he's also got ARP head studs, since if you know Subarus, the head gasket issues, so that'll definitely help with that. He's also got a Mishimoto cold air intake for it that we're going to be throwing on. And over here we have ourselves a brand new short block. It's got the pistons, rods, crank already in there. It's a Type RA block, so a little bit more durable than the OEM ones. We also got our head gasket kit, our gasket kit, all that. But yeah, if you know Subarus, should know if you have a Cobb access port, those tunes on there are not safe at all. So this thing lasted about, I think, 20 minutes with the Cobb access port tune before it grenaded itself. Super sad. It's one of my buddy's cars. Sucks, but so we're gonna be throwing a new engine in. But this video, we're gonna just be pulling it out and basically looking at everything, seeing what the damage is and whatnot. Also forgot to mention, he's got a few more parts coming. I think he's got a boost controller, a few other things. The car's hopefully, once it's all done, broken in and all that, we're gonna get an actual dyno tune, so the car's safe. But we're going, I think he's going for around 300 horsepower, wheel horsepower. So yeah, let's get into it. All right, so as you can see, I already got the battery out and the intake, intercooler, downpipe. It actually has a full Tomy turbo back exhaust, catless downpipe, all that. But so yeah, now we're just gonna start tearing this thing apart. I think we're also gonna be hooking up this sub too. Doesn't have it hooked up yet. I know he wants it to. He's already got the amp and all the wiring and all that stuff, and he's got the aftermarket radio already put in for it. So I think we'll also be doing that sometime, one of the videos of this car. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is probably pull the radiator out. Pretty simple. Just gotta take these two 10mm out and remove the brackets, get all the hoses off, and unclip the fan connectors down there, get the lower radiator hose, all that stuff, make sure all the lines are disconnected, and then it should just slide right out. It's pretty easy. But yeah, we definitely want to remove this to pull the engine out just for clearance. I don't want to hit the radiator when I'm pulling the engine out and then ruin it. So yeah, we're gonna do that. All right, so we got the car jacked up, took the splash guard out, got all the lines for the radiator disconnected. I just pull them off from the side that they attach to the engine stuff, rather than the radiator. That way it just gets the lines completely out of the way, rather than them sitting here dangling. Same with this one, see? And the bottom one's still draining. Wasn't much coolant left in this thing after the turbo seal went. Pretty much all the coolant went right through the engine, so wasn't much coolant to drain anyways. But got everything disconnected now. Pretty much just go ahead and pull it right out. All right, got the radiator out. It's super easy to pull out, just comes right out once you disconnect the two brackets up here and all the hoses. You also got to disconnect the electric fan connectors and whatnot, but yeah. Gonna go ahead now and pull the oil plug off, drain the oil out, see how it looks. Yeah, so that is definitely not good. Wow. Chunks in there. Alright, so as you can see, that's pretty much all metal flakes. Probably rod bearing or something. I think it's safe to say that this engine is definitely junk. After seeing this coolant, or oil, mainly coolant. Let's see. Definitely does not look good. Alright, now I'm gonna go ahead and pull the alternator off. Already got this wire pulled off. Also got this one pulled out. Gonna just pull this whole wiring harness, put it all the way. Gonna take this one out. I think that's a 12. And then it's just 2 bolts, one right here, and this adjuster as well. Take the belt off, and then you can get the alternator out. Alright, so once you got that bolt out, also you gotta loosen the tensioner to take the belt off, and then take this belt out of the alternator. You just grab the alternator, lift up, pulls right out. Alright, so we also went ahead and took the air pump out. I think we might be deleting that, just putting a block off plate, because it's basically useless if you don't even have a cat anyways. It's a catless downpipe and it's for emissions anyways, so probably just gonna end up getting rid of that. I'm just gonna take this out, but it's just 3 10mm along the bracket, 1, 2, and then 3. And now we gotta get the AC compressor off, and this is charged, and you can remove this without having to disconnect the lines. You can still pull the engine out. So I'm gonna pull this off and then probably put it like over here. Just fold the lines over and put it over here, so it doesn't need to get his AC recharged. There's a bolt up here, and then I'm gonna have to take this bracket off. And there's a bolt down there. See it? And then this should just come out as well. Take the belt off too, and then go from there. Alright, so I ended up just loosening up this big bracket to get, just take these 3 bolts out. There's 2 right here, and then 1 back here. Someone's been in here before, because there should be a 4th bolt in this one, but as you can see, it's snapped in half. So someone's been in here before, snapped that bolt. Not really a big problem though. But I got these 2 bolts out, and the reason I took off this whole bracket is because there's 2 bolts in the back. See them? There's one right here, and then there's one down there. You can't really get to it with the manifold on, so it's easier anyways just to take off the whole bracket and move it. Took off the belt, and now I'm gonna get those 2 bolts out so I can take the whole AC compressor and move it out of the way. Alright, so we went ahead and got the brackets out, moved the AC compressor off to the side. I'm gonna end up bungee cording it over there or something to get it out of the way completely, but now I can just pull all these connectors out as well. This one over here. And now we can start working on the power steering pump. Alright, so got the power steering pump out. Just gonna move it over to the side here. That way we don't have to disconnect the lines and drain all the power steering fluid, put more in. It's better off just leaving it all connected. So to do that, there is 2 bolts up front here, and then there's one in the back. The one in the back you can't really get to until you basically remove all these solenoids. This one, 10mm, goes into there. And then this one is a 12, the bolt's right there. And I just pulled this vacuum line off the intake manifold. Moved all this stuff out of the way so I can get to that bolt back there. Alright, next thing we do, I'm just gonna pull this vacuum line off, just like that. Probably pull this one off as well. But yeah, just start basically unclipping any wires or connectors you see. Do things like that. Alright, so we also went ahead and got the fuel lines removed. I just went ahead and used these fuel line removal tools. You just slide them in to here, pop those 2 tabs out. There's one on each side. Just remember, top one goes to fuel regulator. Bottom one, I believe, goes to the fuel filter. But it's the feed line, and this is the return. So yeah. Alright, so I went ahead and pulled the oil fill cap off. Got it over here. And I also went ahead and got the air pump hose line pulled off as well. And the crankcase breather tubes. The crankcase breather tubes, one goes right there. The other side of the head, one right there. And then it goes into the intake right there. And then the air pump It's just got a hose right here, and then that hose right there. You just unclip them and it pulls right out. Pretty simple. I got a few more things I'm just loosening up right now, unclipping a few things. Just remember, so I believe this has the same connector as this one right here. So I think they're the same connector. See that they're different colored though. So just remember that I guess the black-white stripe, white one goes on to this one, which is that tees off into the other one. That one has let's see, so it has black, white, and then green and white. So just remember this one goes down to here, the longer one, and then the other one goes to this one. So now I'm going to be working on pulling the starter out down there. I'll probably have to go under the car, but I'm just going to take that connector off and then the signal wire as well, and then I think it's 2 bolts. This pulls right off. So a whole bar angle down here, you can see 1 bolt, and then 1 bolt's on the other side. We're going to have to get to it through the top, but just pull this signal wire off, just like that. We're just going to take this off. It should be a 14 or a 12, I can't remember. Just take that off and then get the 2 bolts, and this thing should pull right out. Alright, so as you can see, got the starter out, got it right here, and I also went ahead and started loosening up the bell housing bolts. The ones behind the axle, they're a pain, directly behind the axle, but you can get to it without having to remove the axle. I just used a swivel. It's 14 millimeter. I just ended up taking the nut completely off on both sides. Now we're just gonna go from there. All right, so I also went ahead and adjusted these so that the hood opens straight up now instead of having it come over the top of the engine. That way it's easier to pull the engine out. If you didn't know, Subaru has another set of bolt holes right here that this bracket bolts onto versus the 2 that it would normally go into right here. So I just switched them down to here. Once you put the engine back in and all that, you do have to put those back in the normal spot because the hood won't close, but as you can see, it puts it straight up so it's out of the way. You don't have to take the whole hood completely off to take the engine out. We'll just be using this overhead crane I have. Just have the hook come down, put a chain on the engine and just pull it up, so that makes it much easier to do since it already comes with the bracket and the bolt holes, so it's kind of nice they do that. Alright, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be removing the exhaust headers. You don't have to remove the exhaust headers to pull the engine out, but I like to do them anyways. It makes my job a little easier. So just going to do the 2 uppipe bolts, one right here, one on the other side, and then pull the 3 bolts or studs off each side. This one has the heat shield on it still, hasn't rotted off yet, but as you can see, just pull that side off, and then these pretty much just fall right down. Alright, as you can see, we got the headers out, and basically, this is everything that came out of it. So this is all coolant and oil. I was just sitting in the headers, so kind of what's in there. Yeah, definitely not good. You can see all the oil from the turbo that blew up. That's all just oil. Same with over here, it's all oil. Straight out of the turbo, so definitely knew that turbo was junk. This is where the up pipe is, so all that oil seal blew out, shot oil and coolant everywhere, and most of it was just sitting in the headers. But I had to torch pretty much all the bolts. I just had to heat them up. Let's see, they're all rusted. Same with the heat shield. I had to end up torching this completely off because there was basically no bolt left. So rotted, but yeah, we got it out, so it's funny all the oil in there. All right, so next thing we're gonna be doing is taking off the intake manifold. So we're just gonna be pulling the TGVs off with the intake manifold along with like the throttle body and all that stuff. So it's 1 bolt there, 2 in the middle down there, and then another one over here, and same with this side. And then you're also gonna have to disconnect the connectors for the ignition coils, the crank position sensor, up here. I already got these disconnected. The cam position sensor on each side, and there's a few other connectors. Just make sure you check all of them. When you pull it up, you'll see what's connected and what's not. You're also gonna have to pull off the coolant lines for the throttle body and a few other lines, but it's pretty straightforward, not too difficult. All right, so we got everything disconnected and pretty much have the TGVs and the intake manifold, all that stuff pretty much pulled out. Now we can just lift it up and lift it up with one hand. Go ahead, set it right there. So there's a bunch of stuff, all these wires, all these hoses, all that you gotta make sure you disconnect. But yeah, now we're getting there. Next thing I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna pull the turbo off. Go ahead and do that. You could just pull the engine out without the turbo on, or with it on still, doesn't matter, but I'm gonna go ahead and pull it off. Another thing to note, thought it was kind of interesting, some of the stuff I've seen. I believe this engine has been out before. I'm not sure why or for what, but I'm kind of noticing a few things, like this hose clamp is loose. I never loosened that, it's just been like that. There's a broken bolt here. Take this bracket off. There's also a hose clamp missing there. There's a few things I've noticed. Kind of makes me wonder if this engine has been out before or not, but yeah, I'm not sure. All right, so to remove the turbo, you gotta pull off the oil feed and return lines. Oil feed, or one of them's, I believe this is the oil return. This is the oil feed. And you gotta pull off the coolant hose lines. There's one right there, and then the other one's down there. I usually pull that one off once I get the turbo out, but to disconnect it from the up pipe, it's this bolt. There's one down there. There's one over here. And then you also got to disconnect this bracket. I already got the bolt out right there, and as well as the one right here. And then turbo should come up, and then the up pipe will go down and fall out there. All right, so as you can see, got the turbo and the up pipe out. Got the turbo here, the up pipe, and I pulled it out. This is all raw. It fell right off actually, and this one is also pretty close to falling off as well. So I'll probably just end up cutting it off so you don't hear any rattling in the car. It's not that important to have a heat shield. Might end up getting a different one just so it does have a heat shield, but I think it'll be fine without one. I've never had a problem doing that before. But as you can see, I already got the bell housing bolts loosened up. Did that earlier, and the case has already split. The bell housing and the engine, you can already see a little gap right there. I also already pulled the engine mount nuts out. Also, still gonna pull out this clutch fork and the slave cylinder. Gonna move it out of the way so the clutch can come out with the engine. And we got a few more things, then we could probably pull this thing right out. All right, so to get the clutch fork out, it's a little 14 millimeter Allen head, and it's down right. It's kind of hard to see, but it's right there. And then inside of there is a slide pin that this sits on. And the best way to get that slide pin out is to actually go ahead and use intake manifold bolt. I found saw this on YouTube actually. It's the same thread as that. So another thing is, I don't know if I already said this, but I disconnected the heater hoses, and we also got to pull this mount off for the transmission in order to pull the engine out. And another thing is, I believe you only have to do this for the 6-speed, the STI transmissions. I don't think you have to do that on the WRXs. It's a different way they pull them out. A little bit simpler than this, but yeah. All right, so as you can see, we got the little pin out. It's got a threaded hole in there. That's the part where you put the intake bolt in. You can just pull it right out, that bolt. You also got this disconnected now. And now I'm just gonna go ahead and disconnect, completely take out all the bell housing bolts. All right, so now I got all the bell housing bolts out, and I'm just gonna look over everything, make sure I got everything out, nothing's still connected, everything's out of the way. And then attach a chain to this thing and pull it out with the crane. All right, so as you can see, we got the crane, got it all chained up, and I just use this bolt. This is for the turbo bracket, and then usually I use this one, but since it's already snapped off, I went ahead and used this one. It shouldn't matter too much, but yeah, I just put a chain on it. I'm just gonna lift it up, and I'm gonna use this crowbar just to get in between here. Just gently pry it open and then, or pull it off and pull it right out. All right, so as you can see, engine is finally out, and when it came out pretty smooth. Just had to wiggle it a little bit. You know, they're usually stuck in there with the little dowel pins that center it into the tranny. Usually get corroded in there, kind of a pain, but it all came out. Everything looks good. And yeah, stuff everywhere right now. Definitely have to clean everything up. Got tools, everything everywhere. But super excited, finally got it out, and pretty hyped to throw the new engine in. But anyways, that's gonna wrap this one up. Next video, we're gonna be pulling this thing apart, basically seeing what it looks like on the inside. It'll kind of be interesting just to see how bad everything is, and we're gonna be throwing all the parts onto the new block. We're gonna get the cylinder heads sent out to the machine shop, make sure they're all flat, new timing belt, all that stuff. That'll be all in the next video, cover all that stuff, and then eventually that engine, the new engine, will be getting thrown back in this thing. Peace.